Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. 80,000 fight fans are expected to be at Wembley Stadium on September the 22nd for the Anthony Joshua and Alexander Povetkin fight at Wembley Stadium. Okay, so 80,000, that is what they're now expecting. Question is, for you, is that a success or is that a failure? Or is it something in between? Or are there some other mitigating circumstances that account for what is not going to be a sellout? So this will not be a sellout. Eddie Hearn, in some of the reporting that has been around in the last day or so, he's effectively laid some of the blame at the makeup of the tickets, that there's some coach packages that they haven't been able to shift. That was part of the deal that they had with the stadium, that there was going to be these coach packages, and a big chunk of them haven't sold. They've managed to sell some, but the vast bulk, they haven't been able to shift them. So that's where Eddie Hearn has sort of said, well, some of this is actually out of our control. We had to do this. We haven't been able to move them. In a post on Instagram, in a response, it was actually for the fight week schedule. So public workout on the Wednesday, Thursday the 20th, a press conference, Friday 21st is the weigh-in, and then obviously the 22nd is fight night. In a response to a comment, Eddie Hearn says, we haven't said it's sold out. We will have 80,000 in there. Bummer. And then the sort of crying, laughing face emoji. 80,000. It's certainly a lot of people. In many eyes, it's probably a roaring success. But they had booked the stadium expecting that they were going to sell it out. So 80,000. They're not going to sell about 10% or so of the tickets. There's a couple of things that I do want to get into, because Hearn's explanation about, well, this coach package, out of our hands, we haven't been able to shift them all. Because I hark back to, 18 months ago for the Klitschko fight. Hottest ticket in town. A lot of hype, a lot of buzz for that fight, and they sold it out. And if people really want to get there, if they're busting a gut to get to the fight, and the coach package is the only option available, they'll pay for it. Because they want to be there, to see the fight, witness history, all that sort of stuff. So Eddie Hearn sort of laying the blame at these coach packages, it is sort of skirting around the edge just a little bit. I think there's certainly a case to say that this fight is not the fight that a lot of people wanted to see, but it's the fight that they've got. And just sort of saying, well, it's these tickets, we haven't been able to move them. Does that really sort of cut the mustard, because they have moved them before? Alexander Povetkin, sort of second place in the beauty contest here, because most people wanted the Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua fight. Obviously, they couldn't get that deal done, and we're not going to relitigate that in this video. But it's interesting, though, because even just a year ago, there was a bit of an ongoing joke that, Anthony Joshua could sell out a stadium facing a road sweeper or a bin man, someone like that, a plumber that they'd pulled off the street. But clearly, that's not the case now. But 80,000 still represents a massive success. Sure, they're not going to quite get the gate that they were hoping for, but 80,000. Who else is doing that in the heavyweight division today? Who else has sold 400,000 tickets in their last number of fights? No one. So Anthony Joshua, he may not have sold out for this one, but certainly he's in a league of his own in the heavyweight division in terms of his popularity as being a ticket seller. And I'm sure there will be some who make the argument about, fighters who are fighting in the United States, that tickets are more expensive, smaller venues, all that sort of stuff. But regardless of that, if you were to take account of just the gate sales in terms of what they're generating, it's more than any other heavyweight, regardless of pricing and stadium sizes. And other heavyweights would fight in bigger stadiums if their promoters were confident that they'd be selling them out. So, Anthony Joshua deserves a lot of credit here, because still fighting a guy in Alexander Povetkin who is largely seen as a massive underdog that Joshua should beat quite handily, and he can still sell 80,000 tickets against him, against a massive underdog who doesn't speak English. I think you have to sort of commend them for actually, they've done a pretty decent job of getting it this far. But there certainly was the expectation that they'd be sort of packing it out, creating another night where, there was some history to be made. But obviously a lot of people are looking at this fight going, yeah, I don't know about this. Not sure about this pay-per-view event. Not sure about actually going to the fight. And they're not sure that Alexander Povetkin can win. I can see why a lot of people are sort of gone, actually, I'm going to hold on to my money here. But then the question becomes, what if what if that fight doesn't happen next? We have to look ahead and go, okay, they've got an April date booked for Wembley. It's a big cost to, book out a stadium. It costs a lot of money. It's like, $1 or $2 million for the hire and the period that they have it. It's a big cost. They need to know that they're going to do well here. And obviously, if they're selling 80,000 here, what's to say if the opponent isn't someone that the fans want to see? Who's to say it couldn't be lower? Are people really jazzed for a Dillian Whyte and Anthony Joshua rematch just yet? Certainly, Jarrell Miller thinks, he's a legend in his own lunchbox and he deserves a shot at Anthony Joshua. But if it was to happen at Wembley in April, would people really be interested in that? And when I say that, it's all relative, so don't get your nose out of joint here. Still, if 50,000 tickets, 60,000 tickets, 70,000 tickets, it's a lot of fans coming to a fight. So you have to look at it, relatively speaking, it's a huge number of fans. But for the level that Anthony Joshua has been at, he's obviously sold out 80,000 at Cardiff a couple of times, 90,000 for the Klitschko fight. And this one here, capacity, I think it was 95. So if you're doing 80 now, and the opponent Alexander Povetkin is similar to a number of others in the division, does that make Eddie Hearn and Matchroom have a bit of a rethink about the April opponent? But also going forward, what next? And I don't mean just April, I mean after that. Do they actually go, okay, how many mega fights can we make? Because they're going to have to start thinking about this, because if someone like Povetkin can't sell out Wembley with Joshua, can Miller, can others? And does that mean that stadium fights of the size of Wembley, is it maybe actually worth going to a 50,000 seater? Or do they go back to Cardiff? Do they take it on the road? Or is this a short-term malaise that we've just seen here because obviously it wasn't the fight that people wanted? Certainly, I think there's a few issues that Eddie Hearn and Matchroom Boxing are going to need to sort of think through carefully, because at the start of this promotion, the way things had been tracking, I'm sure they would have thought, okay, we're going to sell this out. And there's some other factors at play here as well. Obviously, there's been a few tightenings up of, related to the secondary ticket market. That's probably had some impact. But at the same time, when tickets go into the secondary ticket market, generally they're marked up in price. So, they've still got 15,000 tickets here. So, it can't all just be that. There's an interest thing here. The hype hasn't been as much. And a lot of us have been talking about this for weeks. There's not the same buzz. There's not the same level of excitement. Even on YouTube, not the same number of videos being made about this upcoming fight. A lot of people are just like, oh, well, it's going to be a mismatch, or, he's going to beat him easily. He's going to walk through him. And Josh was saying he's going to walk through him himself. And I think it's going to be a lot tougher in terms of the actual fight than, Joshua and some fans are talking. Because Alexander Povetkin, he might be a bit long in the tooth at 39. But he's no joke. He can crack and he's durable. He's never been stopped as a professional. So I think some of the talk that he's going to get battered out of there and around is just, fanciful sort of stuff. But it will be interesting to see, well, what next? If Wembley is not a lock to get sold out on, opponents that fans aren't necessarily that jazzed about, it's not the sort of, Anthony Joshua road sweep equals 90,000 tickets sold out. They've got some decisions to make. And I guess another question is, do we need to sort of ask ourselves, have we reached or passed peak popularity for Anthony Joshua? Or is this just a lull before things fire up again for a mega fight with a Tyson Fury or Deontay Wilder? Or has his profile and image been hurt some, in part because of these failed negotiations, but potentially performances? The premature stoppage for Carlos Takam and the points win against Joseph Parker, it does seem to have sort of slowed his momentum. A lot of casual fans just want to see a knockout and a knockout only. That's what they come for. That's what they watch for. And I guess the other aspect with this as well, 80,000 tickets, they haven't been able to shift the rest. So that shows that the interest is at a certain level, right? So for the pay-per-view, for the big ones, Joseph Parker and Vladimir Klitschko, 1.4, 1.5 million, that was somewhere around there. The Carlos Takam fight was 886,000 from memory. These are the recent figures that were published. So if we're to go by that measure, does this mean that the Povetkin fight will be somewhere closer to the Takam fight rather than over 1 million buys, or closer to 1.345, whatever that number is at the upper end there? I actually think maybe this might be an 800,000 buy fight. Something of that ilk, 800,000 or 900,000 buys, would certainly be, I would think, in line with the interest for the actual fight at Wembley in terms of the tickets sold. I think there could be some sort of correlation we could draw here. But, I want to stress again, though, 80,000 tickets, 70,000 tickets, even if it was 50,000 tickets. It's a monumental effort. So if the hype train is slowed a little bit, maybe the gravy train, there's not as much gravy in it anymore, and maybe it's only temporarily, there's still a lot of gravy in that train. They're generating massive earnings, not only, on the gate, they'll get massive earnings on the pay-per-view. And there will be a number of people looking to just jump in, pile in, and basically say that Joshua's shot, he's finished, this is, he's going to go downhill here, his popularity's waning, duck squad, all this sort of stuff. But the reality is, still selling 80,000 tickets, it's a monstrous effort. All other boxers, I'm sure, would be envious because they would know that what that would translate into a payday for them. No one else is generating the money that Joshua is, even on a slightly down fight like this one. So there's a few things that I've sort of tossed around there. What do you make of it all? Drop a comment, loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.